practical application of cracking on imperfectly. What we can do when life happens. And maybe you were doing really well with your optimal. So say, for example, you are tracking calories or hitting a step target. But then what do we do when a wedding comes up, or a busy work period, or the kids are doing your head in?
Even this podcast was an example of imperfect action. We planned this for ages, and every time we'd meet up with Rachel, we'd say, oh yeah, we'll get this and this sorted, and then we'll start the podcast. I think we maybe even, from memory, I think we might have even said like, by April, start the podcast or something like that. Another thing, like a few more weeks went by, we were like, oh yeah, we'll focus on this first and then we'll do the podcast. And then we just had a moment where we went, let's just record the first episode. And we've now recorded episodes every week for the last 3-4 weeks and got the ball rolling on it.
Yeah.
We are, I'd like to think, a bit more relaxed in this episode and a bit more comfortable.
I'd like to think so.
With the thought, like just getting used to things.
Yeah, although the camera's still freaking us out a little bit.
And that only happened by just starting imperfectly, not having all of our ducks in a row, and just saying, let's just do the first episode and then see what happens.
Yeah.
And I think to kind of relate that to people's training and nutrition journeys, health and fitness journeys, I think it's more of an attitude of, this is one big practice, is how I'll kind of frame it to clients.
Yeah.
Each week is an opportunity to practice. Each week is an opportunity to fuck up and learn from it.
Yeah.
We're not going into it hoping that we get things wrong and that everything goes to shit. Like, that's not the intention at all. But so many people are caught in that cycle. I was for years and years and years of thinking that everything needed to be perfect to make progress. And you end up with this 2 steps forwards, 2 steps back, 2 steps forwards, 2 steps back, because the assumption that I'm only going to do this when everything goes well already sets you up to fail before you even start. You're almost embracing and accepting that things are going to go wrong. Learn how to overcome those challenges rather than have those challenges mean start from square one again.
I think especially as a generation, us, millennial, Gen Z, or maybe even slightly before, there's very much the diet culture, a little bit of hustle culture as well, and that mindset of, if I'm doing it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go in hard and I'm going to smash it, which is great and does help us in some ways. But I think for a lot of people, not everyone, but let's say the majority of people that we do work with, it does create that narrative of, if it isn't perfect, it can't happen at all. And just like you said, that stop process. And even as we were saying with us starting the podcast, it was actually holding us back from actually getting going. And that's exactly how we want to approach getting started with fitness. Even if it isn't perfect, let's crack on the best we can and learn along the way.
A conversation that I had with a client who's just started with me was around how they were sort of questioning, am I doing the right things? Am I making fast enough progress? Is this the right thing for me? Literally in week 1 and 2. With one-to-one coaching, there's a bit more of a journaling aspect, a bit more of a kind of motivational interviewing aspect where we try and ask the right questions. We realised that there's a real kind of history and a narrative of self-sabotage. There's maybe a lack of belief that we're actually going to be able to make the changes that we want to make. There is a narrative of fast progress is the only good progress. And by embracing, which has been really difficult for that client, and they've done really, really well to kind of challenge that in the first couple of weeks, we've realised that it's not the method. It's not that we need to find the right diet. It's not that we need to find the right training program. It's not that we need to do X, Y, or Z. It's that through challenging and then embracing that things aren't always going to go to plan, we are going to feel like throwing the towel in at times, and that actually those feelings are what we need to work past to be able to continue on their journey. And explore and challenge those narratives of self-sabotage, a lack of belief, that's where the progress is actually going to be initially for that client to move past that. And that only comes from really uncomfortably pushing past that point of, is this working? Is it quick enough? Etc.
Those weeks where it feels like a step back, they're the weeks that you're learning the most. They're the weeks where growth is happening the most, because you are discovering actually what has been holding you back.
Yeah.
And you don't get there unless you imperfectly just try. And we always say that the first few months of your fitness journey, especially if you're doing our group coaching program, or whether you're working one-to-one with us, it is all about unpicking those elements, and it's almost a little bit of self-discovery and working out what does actually work for you. And I think there is perhaps an expectation of, I need to be doing X, Y, Z to achieve what I want to achieve.
Yeah.
When actually that doesn't work for everyone, and that's okay. So for example, if you've seen something online like, the best way to lose fat is by walking 10,000 steps a day. Okay, that's great. It is a great way to lose body fat. But is that something that's going to work for you? We don't know. Let's give it a try. And if it doesn't, then, let's look at different options.
If people are wondering, okay, how do I, I'm not thinking about having coaching, or I'm not thinking about doing the group coaching. How do I go through that process without the reflective questions from your coach and exploring that together? And we are going to agree actions in that first week of, these are the action points that we're going to focus on. That might be a food diary. It might be giving their initial training program or a bit of an assessment to go, seeing where their current activity is, whatever those action steps are, giving that a go, and then asking ourselves at the end of that week, how did it actually go? How did it actually feel? After the first 2-3 weeks, what changes are we seeing? How are we feeling? What's different? Are the changes what we expected? If they are, great. If they're not, have our actions been in line with, have our expectations been in line with our actions? And I really liked the analogy that Harriet used on our live call on Monday, where she used she used the analogy of a financial goal on a piggy bank.
Yeah.
And a few of my clients listening to this will know that I've used it this week, because I loved it that much. But if we had a savings goal of £1,000, and that represents achieving our health and fitness goals over, say, the course of 9 months, our initial goals, if we could only put a maximum of £20 a day in, yet we finished some days with a fiver, a tenner, we wouldn't go, oh, well, there's no point putting that in because I can't put in 20. We would go, well, if I put in 5 or 10, it's still all going to add up, and it's still going to compound to me achieving that goal quicker.
Yeah.
And it might mean that we achieve that goal in 7 months instead of 12 months. Whereas, and like, we can equate that to what we're doing with our training. If we can't do 3 sessions, it's very, very common and very easy to think, well, I'll start again next week and next week will be better. Yeah,
the classic, I'll start again on Monday. Yeah.
Whereas our 1 or 2 sessions might represent putting in £5 or £10, and it is still going to be a step towards our goals, just a smaller step. And it's a bit like, I think an incredibly common one is with nutrition. Initial kind of understanding that if we go over our calories, we're not in a deficit unless we go over quite significantly. We're just in a smaller deficit. So actually, if we go 200 calories over, we might be in a 300 calorie deficit instead of a 500. And it is still a step towards our fat loss goals. It's the, I've ruined it now. I'll go 1,000 over. That is what actually slows down our progress and takes us further away from our goals. It's not I've gone a little bit over. It's the reaction of, screw it.
100%. Just as an example, I went out at lunchtime and I had a couple of drinks. So then I thought, fuck it, my day's ruined. I'm going to now have a takeaway for dinner, and then it is the whole weekend's ruined. And I think this is a huge part of it, is taking away that feeling of guilt, taking away that feeling of shame and like you failed. Because when you zoom out, and we talk about this a lot with our clients, is zoom out, look at the bigger picture. Does that mean that the rest of your week was a failure? No, definitely not. Does that mean that we don't have an opportunity to intercept and change the direction that this is going in? It's not that one decision that is going to lead you to having a crap week. It is the decisions after that.
Yeah, and I think the practical application of like the imperfect action side of this is that imperfect action is a skill. If you're listening to this right now, there's a very, very good chance that it's not your immediate reaction to something. And a coach that I worked with years ago, something he said to me really stuck in my brain, which was the saying that neurons that fire together wire together.
Yeah.
There's a very good chance that it is a very automatic, easy, comfortable decision to start again on Monday. We might be talking about a lifetime of that being the automatic decision. The transition to imperfect action is going to be a process of, this conversation might spark someone to be more aware that that's even a concept and that's a change that they'd like to make, and they'd like to be less all or nothing. We are not expecting you to go away from this podcast and suddenly, because you've become aware of the idea of imperfect action, that's just what you do now. It might be that there is one opportunity over the next few days where you go, hang on, I would normally start again on Monday at this point, or I would normally skip the gym tonight because I didn't make it yesterday. And I remember that podcast that I listened to, and it's just stopping you in the moment, pausing, taking a deep breath and going, let me practice a different response. I don't have time for an hour. Let me go and do 20 minutes. And just because we've done it once doesn't mean that then the next time we're gonna nail it, and it's gonna be the same thing again, and now that's it. We ride off into the sunset, and that's what we do now.
That would be lovely. We probably wouldn't have jobs actually in this instance. Yeah,
it's like an old-fashioned scale. At the moment, we're gonna have tons of weight on the side of all or nothing. And we are slowly, bit by bit, trying to practice that imperfect action more and more and more to where it does become the automatic response. And it's about that practice. It's about just trying to pick out those moments to be aware, to slow down, to pause. And it'll be a process of that becoming the new normal through practice. Not, oh, I've learned that on the podcast, now that's me now. There's still going to be moments where it goes wrong, and that's the disheartening bit. Well, I did it the other day and now I'm back to where I was. It's just every opportunity we get, we practice it, and it will become more and more natural. Yeah,
I love having that moment with clients. I've realised that this isn't about each week, it's about the long journey, and each individual moment where they didn't hit the fuck it button and they got back on the horse and cracked on imperfectly. And I think it's such a cool way to look at it. And like you said, it's a skill, it's something that you learn to do over time. That feeling really uncomfortable and learning to do things even if it feels really messy and you don't have the perfectly organised week, or you've ticked all of the boxes, it might feel a bit chaotic and frantic. So I think if we give like some actual practical applications of this, maybe from a training perspective, say for example, your target for the week was to do 4 workouts. And then you look at your schedule and you're like, how the hell am I going to do that? My week is going to be a write-off. I failed. It's all, gone to shit. So what can we do? Number one, obvious one, is looking at, can we do 3 or can we do 2? That's a really simple one that we can do. And that doesn't mean that your week has been a failure. It means that you've still given the best that you could. And I think this is it. It's not, doing 100% all of the time, but some weeks your best is going to be 50% because that is what you can physically do. Yeah. And, that's what we're going to work with. So number one, can I drop down to 2 sessions? Another really cool way of looking at it is, can I just pick maybe 4 exercises from that workout that I can crack on with? That would be a nice kind of step 2. Or can I shorten the workout in a different way, maybe by reducing the rest periods, or putting 2 exercises back to back as a superset and just making it a shorter session. So instead of the normal hour that it would be, can it be 30 minutes or 20 minutes? Then from there, if you can't do that, if that's not possible, right, what is the next best thing that we can do? Can I maybe do a workout at home? Some body weight and dumbbell work. That's still going to be movement. That's still a step in the right direction, even if it isn't the perfect workout that you've planned. And once again, if that's not possible, can we go for a walk instead? And optimal number one is going to be doing the perfect workout. Option number two is going to be doing a shorter workout. Option number three is going to be training at home and so forth.
A phrase that I use with clients a lot is, if not this, then that. Going through that exact ladder that you went through. I think that probably the biggest driver behind that as well is that we know that we quite often get motivation backwards, in that we think that we have to feel motivated to do something. Doing something, action, is what will make us feel motivated. That walk will then mean that I don't really like the phrase, but people will know what we mean when we say, like, we still feel like we're in the game. Like, we still feel like we're doing it, as opposed to...
The cogs are still turning.
I've totally fallen off this week. How am I going to get back on track? It feels like a much bigger mountain to climb of, crap, I've messed up. How do I get started again? Than yesterday, I couldn't make it to the gym, but I went for a walk. Today, I do have time to go to the gym. We're just carrying on. We're not starting over, we're just carrying on. And I think to probably round this episode off, when you're going through that reflective process at the end of the week, a really good question to ask yourself is, if I was to relive this week, what would I have done differently? Because the answer doesn't have to be, I messed up, I would have done X, I would have done Y, I've learned from my mistakes. It might be, like you said, oh, actually, I probably could have given myself a bit of a kick up the bum to get to the gym, and I probably would have felt quite good for it. But it also gets us to go, actually, I was in the emergency vets on the whole of Thursday and Friday, and life threw an absolute curveball my way, and maybe I would have on Saturday decided to do one session over the weekend instead of none. Or it's going to get us to look at what was actually realistic for me to do, quieten that battle that we quite often have in our head of, am I being too hard on myself? Am I being too easy on myself? And look at, if I was to relive that, what would I have actually done differently?
Over time, I think that's something that you will, on reflection, kind of get to learn a little bit more about yourself and what the right kind of balance is for you. But I think like a really cool thing that you mentioned there about maintaining that baseline, and I'll touch on this super briefly, but you said about, we expect motivation to just spring out of nowhere, but actually, if everything goes to shit, what is my absolute baseline that I can still stick to? So one that I know that you do is that even if it's been a really busy week, kids, everything's going mental, you will still aim for your bare minimum of doing 2 training sessions per week.
Doesn't matter what they are, I just get in the gym. I might do 45 minutes of arm supersets and pretend that I'm back in college and get a really sick arm pump, but I'm in the gym and I'm moving.
Something's happening.
And something is happening.
And for me, like personally, it is getting in some form of walk, because I know that going out for a walk, even if it is 15 minutes of being outside, is going to kickstart that momentum. And it goes back to what we were saying earlier about that motivation, that momentum. You have to create it, and maybe thinking ahead and having almost like a bit of a contingency plan of, right, this week's going to look super mental. I'm going to pencil this in. That's what we're going to aim for. But if that doesn't happen, once again, what's the next best thing that I can go for? What's my bare minimum? And we call this your kind of non-negotiable. What's the absolute, if everything goes to shit, what can I commit to? Even if it feels really small, we want to make that goal manageable, achievable and realistic, so that we can keep the ball rolling. And then when things do get a little bit less crazy, we can start to add things back on. Something you can take away from this today is, okay, what is my action plan? If I can't do X, then what is going to be the next best option?
Keep in front of mind, if not this, then that. And at the end of the week, setting a reminder in your phone to ask yourself, if I was to relive this week, what would I have done differently?
Amen.
And those two things will have you ride off into the sunset of imperfect action.
And that's it, you've mastered it forever.
It will certainly get the ball rolling on making more messy progress, being consistently imperfect rather than inconsistently perfect.
See you next week, guys. That is all today from the Lift Shit, Get Banged podcast.